You ever see a man slowly dying, but he's smiling through it? He's the guy carrying all the grocery bags without being asked, fixing the Wi-Fi in silence, nodding along during arguments just to keep the peace, sitting across from a woman at dinner, the same woman who once whispered his name like a prayer, but now barely even acknowledges he's there. And the saddest part? He doesn't even know he's dying. He thinks he's being mature, being the bigger person, being the guy she asked for. But what he can't see is that he's disappearing. One "I'm sorry" at a time. One "it's okay" at a time. One fake smile at a time. And the coldest part of all? He volunteered for it. Let me ask you something no man ever really says out loud. Why do women often seem to reject exactly what they say they want? They beg for a sensitive man, then fall headfirst for the guy who treats them like a meeting on his calendar. They talk about partnership, yet light up for dominance. They say, "I want a nice guy," and then ghost him the moment he listens too much. Schopenhauer called it a biological paradox. I call it crucifixion. Because men today are being nailed to expectations that were never real in the first place.
Now listen, this isn't about villainizing women. She's not being evil. She's not lying. She's not even manipulating you. She just doesn't know. Because what she says she wants, that's coming from her social self, from years of cultural messaging. But what she responds to, that's ancient, primal. It's coded in her nervous system. And nature? Nature has no chill. Nature doesn't care that you were there for her during her darkest moments. It doesn't care that you canceled your dream job to help her pursue hers. It doesn't care how many good morning texts you send. Nature doesn't reward nice. Nature rewards survival. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. You think you're gonna outlove that. You think being loyal, romantic, emotionally available, that's gonna override millions of years of instinct? Let me tell you something that could either free you or shatter you, depending on how deep your illusions go. She doesn't want your love. She wants your gravity. She wants to feel like she's falling into something she can't control, but that she needs.
And if you become predictable, always available, always explaining, always checking in, always adjusting to her feelings, she won't hate you. She'll just dry up. Schopenhauer didn't sugarcoat this. He once wrote, "With women, love is and remains a matter of the will of nature, not of personal feeling." And if that doesn't punch through your romantic delusions, nothing will. Nature doesn't eliminate weak men through violence anymore. It just uses disinterest. She doesn't need to leave you. She just stops laughing at your jokes. She stops looking you in the eyes, stops texting first, stops trying. And you think it's your fault. So you try harder. You get more affectionate. You double down on the things that used to work. You walk right into the slaughterhouse, wearing a suit made of sincerity, because no one told you the truth. Here it is. The more you act like the man she says she wants, the less you resemble the man her instincts respect. That gap, that's where men get lost. You believed her words, but words are her social script, her PR team. What she responds to, that's from the womb of her biology.
And biology doesn't negotiate. It doesn't care how thoughtful your playlist was. It doesn't care about your therapy breakthroughs. It doesn't read your poetry. It smells power. You thought you were the good guy in her life. But if you've ever been dumped after giving her everything, here's the brutal truth. You gave too much and became nothing. You weren't the mountain anymore. You became the mudslide. And that's what Schopenhauer was screaming about when he said, "Men are by nature more capable of objectivity, while women act more as the instruments of the species." You hear that? You weren't rejected because you weren't enough. You were rejected because your devotion made you useless to her instincts. You remember the first time she looked at you like you were a god? Not just charming, not just sexy, but sacred? That look doesn't lie. But you also remember the day that look disappeared, and you can't figure out why. Because you were more loving, more present, more devoted than ever. But somehow that glow was gone, and in its place, politeness, fatigue, a sort of emotional nausea, like she was trying to convince herself you still moved her, but you didn't. And neither of you wanted to admit it, because the version of you she worshipped was the man who didn't need her. He invited her, but he was already whole.
He had edges, he had boundaries, he had a mission bigger than her approval. That version of you, that was magnetic. But the version that came later, the one who made her his emotional compass, the one who folded every time she was upset, that version disappeared in her rearview mirror. Schopenhauer said, "A man can be himself only so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom." Let that land for a second, because here's the real trap. Most men today are not free, not in their hearts, not in their minds, not in their relationships. Their emotions are leased out to the mood swings of a woman who says she loves them but doesn't respect them. And once respect dies, so does attraction. You go from king to caretaker, from fire to flicker. She tells you, you've changed, but what she means is, you softened. And here's the brutal truth of nature. Nature does not reward softness without strength. Let me talk to the part of you that's been forgotten, even by you. You cannot negotiate attraction. You cannot earn desire with loyalty. You cannot beg your way back to the throne you used to sit on effortlessly. And I get it, man, because no one ever taught you this. You were taught to listen, to talk more, to open up, to journal, to be emotionally available. You were taught that communication means pouring your heart out like a faucet with no handle. But that's not what she meant. When she said, "I want a man who communicates," what she really meant was, "I want a man whose presence speaks before his words ever do." When she said, "I want vulnerability," she didn't mean tears and panic attacks and paragraph-long texts. She meant a man who's tamed his chaos and offers it selectively, like fire on a cold night. She's not lying. She just doesn't speak your language. And Schopenhauer? He saw all of this like X-ray vision. He didn't write love stories, he wrote autopsies. He dissected the illusions that lead men to emotional slaughter. He said, "In their hearts, women think they were created only for the propagation of the species and not for the sake of man himself." That sounds dark, but it's not bitterness, it's biology. She's not here to understand you, she's here to feel you. And feelings? They're not earned, they're not fair, they're not logical, they're instinctual. So no, you're not competing with the other guy. You're competing with the energy that makes her feel alive. You're competing with the version of you she used to admire. That electric presence, that gravity, that calm masculine silence, that unshakable energy that said, "I'm not here to prove, I'm here to be." And if that sounds harsh, good, because maybe it's finally time you stopped trying to be lovable and started being undeniable. You weren't born to be her boyfriend. You were born to be a man. And manhood isn't an aesthetic. It's not a brand. It's not some TikTok trend. It's a rootedness. It's the kind of presence where, when a woman leans into you, she forgets what day it is.
But most men today, they're performing. They're shape-shifting. They're smiling through pain, nodding through disrespect, hiding their anger just to avoid an argument. And every time they do that, she loses a little more respect. Not because they're bad, but because they betrayed their own design for her comfort. Let me drop this in your chest like a weight. She doesn't want what she says. She wants what she feels safe admiring.
And that admiration? It only exists when you're first loyal to yourself. That's what Schopenhauer was really trying to say, hidden between the bleak lines of his philosophy. That male suffering doesn't come from rejection. It comes from forgetting who you are. Because here's what most men are never taught. A woman doesn't fall for your effort. She falls for your energy. Effort is a transaction. Energy is truth. You can buy her flowers, plan the perfect date, pour your heart out, cry in her arms, text her paragraphs about how much she means to you. But if, in that moment, your spirit is starving, if you've lost your edge, everything you give starts to rot in her hands. That's why the good guy loses to the guy with that dangerous calm. That's why the one who chases ends up ghosted. And the one who walks away? He's the one she chases. It's not toxic, it's not a trick, it's gravity. And you were taught to defy that gravity, to earn what can only be felt.
Schopenhauer knew this before TikTok ever existed, before alpha male podcasts or high-value man courses were trendy. He didn't say it pretty. He said it like a scalpel. Women exist in the main solely for the propagation of the species and are only the means thereto. Now, don't take that to mean women are shallow or evil. It means her biology outranks her logic. When she says she wants stability, she's telling the truth. But sometimes her nature might crave a little chaos. She says she wants a provider, sure, but her soul might pulse at the presence of a man who doesn't need a thing from her. And that's where the disconnect happens. She's torn between what society told her to want and what her body pulls her toward without permission. And you're collateral in that conflict if you don't understand it. Here's the twist most men never see coming. She's not confused. You are. You believed the instructions. You took her words literally. She said, "Be emotionally available," and you interpreted that as, "Tell her every insecurity the moment it pops up." So you opened the floodgates, you overshared, and you thought, now she'll see how real I am, now she'll love me. But what she really needed was emotional leadership. She needed a man who could hold tension without collapsing under it. A man who could feel deeply, but didn't become what he felt. She didn't want to be your therapist. She wanted to be magnetized by your energy. That's not manipulation. That's instinct.
And when your energy dies, when you lose that inner fire, she doesn't hold a press conference. She doesn't give you a warning. She just gets quiet. She stops arguing. She stops asking. She stops initiating. And you think that's peace, but it's actually the funeral music of a dying attraction. This is where most men panic. They feel the shift, and they double down. More gifts, more date nights, more validation. But she's already gone. Not physically, yet. But emotionally, she already buried the relationship. She doesn't want your solutions anymore, because the question of you has already been answered in her nervous system. You're no longer the mountain, you're the mudslide. And the real heartbreak? You became that for her. In trying to protect the relationship, you sacrificed the very thing that made her want it in the first place. You went from leader to pleaser. from edge to echo. And here's the hardest truth of all. No woman stays attracted to an echo. Now listen, because this is where it turns round. You can't fix this with more romance. You can't revive it with texts, poems, or dramatic speeches. The only way back is to resurrect yourself.
And that resurrection, it doesn't begin with her. It begins the moment you say to yourself, "I'd rather be alone than unseen." That's the line. That's the ritual. That's the rebirth. And it's exactly what Schopenhauer meant when he said, "The person who seeks solitude is one who has discovered that the world, especially the social world, is incapable of satisfying him." Solitude isn't loneliness. It's recalibration. Because when you rediscover your own fire, your mission, your gravity, your presence, she feels it. She feels it before you say a word. You stop needing to seduce. You become seduction. And suddenly, she wants answers. She wants clarity. She wants you again. But now, you're not chasing her. You're choosing you. Here's the biggest lie ever sold to men. That if you love her harder, deeper, louder, she'll finally see your worth. That if you just prove how safe, loyal, and soft you are, she'll finally wrap her arms around your effort like it's sacred. But that's not how nature works. Because I've been there, man. I've loved so hard, I emptied myself. I poured wine into a cracked glass, thinking that if I just gave more, it would finally hold. But if the container isn't meant for what you carry, it will never be enough.
But if the container isn't meant for what you carry, it will never be enough. She didn't leave because you were unworthy. She left because she felt too safe. And safety, without strength, it turns to boredom. She didn't want to walk away. Her biology compelled her to. Ever seen a woman fall for a guy who doesn't even seem to try? You call him toxic. You call her broken. But what you're witnessing is nature obeying itself. Because love, to her body, not her brain, isn't a checklist. It's a current, a charge, a gravitational field. Schopenhauer said, "The sexual impulse is the most complete manifestation of the will to live. That will, it doesn't care about resumes or good intentions. It wants power, vitality, direction. Not control, not domination, but certainty. That's why she says one thing and does another. Why she posts about emotional health but texts back the guy who barely tries. You're not losing because you're a bad man. You're losing because you became too predictable. And the second she can forecast your every move, the thrill dies. And without thrill, there's no tension. Without tension, there's no polarity. And without polarity, she no longer feels you as her man. She feels you as her emotional assistant. Let that sink in. Because it's not your fault. You were taught to play by broken rules. Society told you that comfort equals connection. But in the underworld of feminine desire, mystery always outranks comfort. And Schopenhauer, he warned us. Women are instinctively cunning and know that to control a man, they must not always say what they mean, nor mean what they say. It's not trickery, it's emotional language, and if you don't learn to speak it, you'll keep misreading every signal she sends.